From KCRG TV 9, this is First Alert Weather Now.
Hello and welcome to the Thanksgiving Eve edition. Do people call it that?
I've heard it called Thanksgiving Eve. I mean, it's not quite the same as Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, but it is the eve of Thanksgiving, so I think that's an appropriate term for it.
I think so too. It works at the very least. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson.
I'm meteorologist AJ Rickman.
And this is Weather Now, the nightly weather show where we discuss what's going on around eastern Iowa in a little bit of depth, as well as what you can expect on a wider view too. And tonight, kind of the wider view is a little bit of the story as we head into the holiday.
It really is. A lot of folks are going to be traveling and going from place to place. A lot of folks will be returning as well to eastern Iowa from wherever they're headed to as we get into the end of the weekend. And even if you're not doing a lot of traveling, Black Friday's coming up. Folks will be driving around to different stores around then. So it's going to be important to know what you need for, or what you can expect for some of those travel plans you have.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot going on this weekend. We start to get into the Christmas holiday season, believe it or not. December starts. Yeah, that's all going to be very, very quick around the corner.
It is. It's kind of amazing that we've already made it to the end of the year. It always feels like they go by fast, and this year was no exception.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but what you need to know as far as getting into those travel plans, at least for the next 24 hours, we're going to be looking at really pretty cold but dry and quiet weather. Make sure that you do dress warm. If you've got any last-minute errands you need to run tonight, maybe go pick up some side dishes for Thanksgiving, or if you're doing any last-minute traveling, maybe some late arrivals tonight or early arrivals tomorrow to Thanksgiving destinations, have a coat with you. It's not going to be there won't be anything in terms of precipitation we're worried about, but it will be cold, and we are going to keep that cold around as we head into the weekend as well. It's going to feel a lot like winter as we have below average conditions work their way across the area. And then we are watching again for pretty good travel, at least in the immediate eastern Iowa area as we head through the weekend. This evening we do have some clouds around that were around earlier this evening. Those have started to clear out, and we're starting to get just a little bit of clearing as we go through the rest of the night. Outside in Fayette is some of those areas that are seeing some clearing. Temperatures are in the 20s and 30s right now. Those winds are out of the north, and that has led to some pretty chilly wind chills out there. So make sure that you do throw on a coat if you're headed around anywhere tonight, and be ready for colder days ahead.
It is turkey time around the area, and this is your Forecast for Fun update as we go through your Wednesday evening. A lot going on around eastern Iowa, and maybe you just want to get away from the hustle and bustle around your house. Take a walk. Now, bundle up if you're going to do so. If you're going to walk like that turkey, you may want to walk a little brisker to build up some warmth. Temperatures by Friday and Saturday in particular, highs only in the 20s. That's with blustery northwest winds at times, especially Friday. That's when we'll sort of feel the coldest over the next several days. Now, the turkey trot, of course, taking place early on Thanksgiving Day. Temperatures around 26 degrees for heading out about. Now, of course, running always helps, but make sure to, again, dress appropriately for that type of weather. One of the colder starts to the day we've seen for the Thanksgiving holiday in a little while. Tannenbaum Forest gets underway in the Amanas this weekend. Temperatures, of course, on the colder side, but there will be a little bit of sun in between, which will help make things feel a little bit warmer. But it's one of those many holiday events coming up. Santa, of course, will be coming to eastern Iowa too. Not for gifts yet, don't get too excited, but he is making his appearance at Lindale Mall Saturday, 11 o'clock. It will be cold and cloudy outside, but decent inside. Same story for our craft and vendor market at the Lynn County Fairgrounds. Temperatures outside in the 20s, but conditions always good for things like that. And don't forget Small Business Saturday. Temperatures, again, chilly. Teens to start off the morning, single-digit wind chills likely during that same time frame. We are expecting things to remain cold as we go through the holiday weekend. Yeah, not so fun if you like the warm weather, but certainly feeling like the season. We'll have more next week. Your Forecast for Fun.
Now, your First Alert forecast with meteorologist Corey Thompson.
Can't show too many of these DOT camera views tonight as folks are still hitting the road. I remember my family occasionally would be heading out pretty late on the night before Thanksgiving. Perhaps not quite this late, but I'm sure there are a few out there. Cedar Rapids City or DOT cameras rather looking very, very clear for travel trouble. Same story from Johnson County, and we've been seeing them all around the state too. Things are in good shape. Road conditions are excellent. And even down in our local communities. Springville City Cam, a lot of folks out and about tonight enjoying their evening before probably a day off for most folks tomorrow. Temperatures in the 30s right now though, so if you are headed out, make sure to dress warmly. Those readings right around 32 in Dubuque, 36 in Springville, but that northerly breeze is still out there, about 5 to as much as 15 miles per hour. We're going to keep that going tonight, but precipitation is unlikely. Winds also to stay, well, noticeable, but not anything too intense during the day on Thursday. That may change a little bit as we go through the latter portion of the week. Now, satellite and radar view shows the clouds generally now sagging to the southeast, a little bit of a break in between, more clouds of the lower variety sagging in from the northwest. Notice that a little bit of flurry activity is trying to show up here on radar. I'll step back for a second. You can see there northwest Iowa too. That, as it has been sliding to the southeast today, has really been falling apart. Dry air in place here. We are on the dry side of this system, which is located down here closer to the boot heel of Missouri down here. Moisture out ahead of it, a boundary providing plenty of rainfall in the Ohio Valley. But in Iowa, we're missing out. Really, honestly, not a bad thing right now as we get closer to the holiday itself. 21 degrees in Dubuque tonight on your first alert forecast, 23 in Oskaloosa. Partly cloudy skies are likely overnight. Same story tomorrow. We'll call it partly cloudy, though there will be periods of grayer skies and periods of clearer skies too. Expect a high only around 26 in Charles City, 32 in Cedar Rapids. Those northwest winds doing a lot of work to reinforce that colder air as we head through the rest of this, well, shortened work week, I guess, the Thursday, Friday time period. There's the northerly breeze we have now. The clouds there moving in from the northwest, but notice that they don't stay totally overcast as we go through the night. Occasional breaks tomorrow too, as clouds continue to rotate around that area of low pressure. Now, as we go through the area of tomorrow night into the start of Friday, not much to worry about there either. Increasingly clear skies, it looks like by Friday, more sun to be enjoyed. Now, that's all as cold air settles in. Area of high pressure will be keeping our weather fairly quiet. The storm system that's to our southeast now will be well to our east as we go toward Thursday afternoon. A little bit of light snow in Minnesota and Wisconsin as we go toward Thursday later in the day. Now, Friday, Black Friday, looking very clear of weather trouble. Same as we head toward that all-important Small Business Saturday, looking like a pretty good set of conditions, except for a little bit of snow to our south. So if you're traveling toward Missouri or southern Illinois over the weekend, yeah, something to keep an eye on. There could be a little bit of slick roadways in those areas as that snow moves through. Around here, it's really the temperatures. Can't emphasize it enough. Just based on how little of this we've had to deal with so far this year, we're not going to be setting records. So we're not out of the ordinary necessarily, but certainly compared to what we have been most of this fall so far, it's been awfully warm. And so those single digits lows, which we'll see on some of those nights, especially in the north, it's going to feel a lot different.
It is going to be a bit of a shock to our systems, especially because, like you said, it's been so mild all of the fall. So this is really the first time we're having a big shot of colder than average conditions.
Yeah, but it's just prepping us for what we know is on the way. It's winter. It's going to happen one way or another.
Indeed. We'll get the cold, then we'll get the snow. And speaking of snow, for this week's Climate Close-Up, I had a look at how our snowfall has changed over the last 40 or 50 years and had a look at how that snowfall would change in a warming climate. So let's have a look. For this week's Climate Close-Up, we're going to have an in-depth look at some of the things that we get to look forward to as we get into the winter season. Specifically, we're going to have an in-depth look at snowfall. So as we have a look at some of those fall milestones that we've achieved so far, first frost October 8th. We've had our first freeze as we normally see that October 20th. We had our first frost October 15th, first freeze the day after. We have seen our first 40-degree high. That was a bit later, about a month later than what we would expect. But then we did see our first flurries about 5 days earlier than average on November 20th. We are still waiting, however, for that first inch of snow. Now, as we do take a look at some of the things that affect snowfall and have affected snowfall over the last couple of decades, one thing is temperatures have warmed a good bit during the winter, especially in the northern and eastern half of the country. So naturally, that does have an impact on the type of winter weather that we see. Specifically, it affects it in ways that you might not expect. So with warmer air, the water, or the atmosphere, is able to hold a little more water vapor. With every degree of warming, we see 4% more water vapor that the atmosphere is able to hold. So what that does, with more water available for storms to use, we can see heavier snowfall until we do cross that 32-degree threshold, and then we see that heavier snow turn into more of a heavier rain event. So in some places, that does mean that as we've seen temperatures warm, we've seen more snowfall, but then we've also seen in other areas where things have warmed too much and we've seen that heavier snow turn into heavier rain. So again, we have seen that warming that's happened in the northern part of the country and then a lot of the eastern half of the country as well. We just mentioned that in a warmer environment, the atmosphere is able to hold more water, which does translate pretty well to seeing more rainfall in general, as we've seen rainfall amounts increase over the northern and then eastern parts of the U.S. Now, in terms of how that impacts our snowfall, areas that have seen snowfall increase, about 36% of reporting stations, are generally stations across the western and then far northern reaches of the U.S. Now, that also, with 36% of stations recording more snowfall, that means that there are 64% of stations recording less snowfall. And you'll notice that difference is that a lot of those stations that are recording less snowfall are just a little bit farther south. Those are those stations that did get heavier snow with more of that available water, but then they crossed that 32-degree threshold, and they're still seeing more precipitation. It's just falling in a liquid form rather than a solid form. So that is kind of an overview of what we do expect and what we do see, as we do have those changing temperatures. Warming temperatures can have an interesting impact on the winter weather that we see, and has different impacts, of course, depending on where you are across the country. Something that will be worth monitoring as we head into this upcoming winter and begin to see more of that snow. And snow isn't exactly one of the things we'll be seeing a bunch of coming up in this 9-day forecast, but of course, as we get later into winter, that is something that we will be watching for. What we are going to be seeing, though, is some cold conditions as we get into your weekend. Black Friday, we're going to be watching for some very chilly wind chills. It's going to be a little breezy during the day as well, with those northwesterly winds 15 to 25. Windiest day we'll have for a while, but it's also one of the colder days. That's why those wind chill values, especially as we get into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, these are in the morning, so those wind chill values are going to be at their lowest at that time, right around 7 a.m., single-digit values. So do make sure that you're dressing in layers, dressing warm. If you have hand warmers, that's a great thing to use too, especially for the kids. Make sure that you're just doing what you can to avoid frostbite and avoid any hypothermia that you might have to deal with. Now, those temperatures stay cold for a couple of days, but they are going to be warming a little bit as we get to the very end of your 9-day there, closer to seasonable values, closer to what we would expect for this time of year. Typically right now, our highs are in the lower 40s, lows in the mid-20s. By the time we get to Black Friday, we're going to be seeing low temperatures that are just a little bit closer to our average lows. Rather, our average highs are going to be closer to average low temperatures we would expect for this time of year. So it's going to be cold, and then it's going to gradually, like I said, warm up as we get towards next week, closer to where we'd expect things to be at this time of year.
Yeah, but you saw it on that chart. Yeah, closer to where we would expect, but we're getting to the bottom of that chart too. It's in the next several weeks.
We are. It's cooling off fast. It's going to keep getting colder as we get into December and then into January.
Yeah, but the warmth returns. Don't worry, folks.
That's true. Everything's cyclical.
Yeah, indeed. And thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you have a great and safe Thanksgiving, and we'll see you back here Monday night, same time, same place.